Murder, She Wrote, Madison Avenue Shoot by Jessica Fletcher and Donald Bain. I've listened to quite a few of these Murder, She Wrote stories, about 30 at time of recording, and while I would classify a few of them as good, some are definitely better than others. This is definitely one of the worst I've listened to. There are two problems, the writing and the narrator. Starting with the narrator, Cynthia Darlow does a passable Jessica Fletcher, although it still sounds a lot more like an impression than someone simply acting. Her performance as Cookie is the standout. I would even say is good and humorous. The other performances range from bad to cringeworthy. The worst is Frank, the 9-year-old nephew, but the detective whose cold comes and goes is down there with him. At one point she mentions someone with an English accent, and honestly up until that moment none of the voices I had heard struck me as English. It was only later that I detected she was trying, emphasis on trying, to do an English accent. Other voices are indiscernible from one another, and then there's the part where she says Brady instead of Grady. However, the biggest problem is simply the writing. Was Donald Bain paid by the word? I cannot emphasize how bad the writing is. The story could have been half the length. There is simply so much superfluous description. The basic plot is that Jess is visiting her nephew Grady in New York. He's now an advertising executive, and somehow she gets persuaded to star in an advert for an international credit card, whatever that is. There's obviously a murder which Jess gets involved in solving, and for which Grady is accused. I found the story making me angry, as everything was so inconceivable. Frank, Jessica's nephew, had got himself into a little accident, and Jessica and Grady decided to take him home to keep him out of further trouble. But it all sorts itself out, and yet somehow he manages to wander off and nobody cares. There has been a murder, and the police refuse to put out an Amber Alert for a child who may have witnessed the crime and who may have been kidnapped. Bain clearly has no idea about the real world. Frank and his friend McKaylee have walkie-talkies that have a range that must extend for miles. We're told that the car comes to pick Jessica up from her hotel to take her to the shoot, and it takes about half an hour. So let's say it's 10 or 15 miles away. Completely inconceivable that children's walkie-talkies would be good for that distance, especially when you have to go to a specific room in the apartment to use them because of the poor reception. Another implausibility is the Italian using the word patch instead of the word spot to describe the commercial. Why would he do that? Italians also use the word spot. Why would he forget a word used in his own language to use a somewhat obscure word in a foreign language? I'm reminded again that Cynthia Darlow is no master when it comes to accents. Characters go on, taking up time and not telling us anything. For example, one character describing a neighbor who explained where to find X, Y, or Z in New York to the new arrivals. The initial scenes with the police were simply irritating. I was actually getting angry listening to it. It wasn't simply that Jessica was having trouble making a policeman listen to her, it went on and on and on. And then it went on some more. So why did I give this 2 stars instead of 1? Because the last 2 hours pick up. The middle two are really tough to get through, and as mentioned, the scenes with the police, including Jessica trying to get to see Grady at the police station, were extremely irritating. I did want to finish this, as I'm a completist when it comes to Murder, She Wrote. It's a shame that none of the audiobooks I've listened to have good narrators. They mostly have weak, flimsy plots, but a good narrator, or cast, would make them so much better. Thankfully, this was a freebie with Audible, otherwise I would be really annoyed. Would I listen to another book written by Donald Bain? Only these Murder, She Wrote stories, and not because I want to. Would I listen to another audiobook narrated by Cynthia Darlow? Again, only these Murder, She Wrote stories. All in all, I'd give the book a 2 out of 5, and the narrator a 2 out of 5 as well. How about you? Are you a fan of these Murder, She Wrote books? How do you feel they compare to the TV series? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as I release a new review every week. Thanks for listening.